It began with the kind of night that draws millions to Times Square, a warm Friday evening in the heart of Manhattan, neon lights shimmering against the glass facades, and the air thick with the sound of laughter, street musicians, and the occasional taxi horn. Tourists clutched shopping bags, snapping photos under the iconic electronic billboards. Street performers painted silver posed like statues for loose change. It was New York in its purest form, vibrant, noisy, alive. But in less than 5 minutes, that energy would flip into something no one expected: fear. It was 8:42 p.m. when the first scream tore through the crowd. Eyewitnesses later described it as the kind of scream that cuts through music, traffic, and chatter all at once. People turned instinctively, scanning for the cause. That's when a sharp, unmistakable crack echoed through the square, the sound of a gunshot bouncing between the tall buildings like a firecracker trapped in a canyon. In the chaos, it wasn't immediately clear where it came from. Some thought it was part of a street act. Others froze, eyes darting. But then, the second shot rang out. Just minutes earlier, security cameras had picked up a figure emerging from the 42nd Street subway entrance. A teenager, slim build, hood pulled low, a dark backpack slung over one shoulder. He moved like someone trying to disappear into a crowd but couldn't quite hide his pace, too fast to be casual, too slow to be running. This was Darren Holt, 17 years old. To most, he would have seemed like just another restless city youth. But to police reviewing footage later, there was something off: the way he gripped the strap of his bag, the way his head kept tilting, scanning for someone, or something. What no one in Times Square knew was that inside that backpack was the weapon that would shatter their evening. The first victim was a man in his mid-30s, standing by the red TKTS stairs, holding his phone up for a selfie with the massive Coca-Cola screen in the background. He never saw Darren approach. Witnesses recalled seeing a quick movement, Darren pulling something from his backpack, and then the first shot. The man dropped instantly, phone clattering to the pavement. The crowd gasped, unsure what had just happened. A woman nearby screamed, and that scream became the signal, the sound that told hundreds of people at once, "Run." Times Square erupted into chaos. People shoved past each other, tripping over benches, spilling drinks, abandoning shopping bags in the rush to get away. Tourists ducked behind hot dog stands. A man pushed his stroller into the entrance of a gift shop, desperate to shield his child. Somebody yelled, "Gun!" And that word traveled faster than the bullets. Darren moved forward, eyes scanning like a predator searching for its next target. Witnesses described his face as blank, no anger, no joy, just a cold, mechanical focus. 2 NYPD officers stationed nearby heard the gunfire and began sprinting toward the source. But navigating a stampede of terrified people is like swimming against a rip current. Every second felt like an eternity. By the time they reached the center of the square, a third shot had gone off. A woman in a bright yellow dress collapsed near the entrance to a souvenir shop. Blood stained the concrete. A man dragged her inside as others pulled down the store's metal security gate. That morning, Darren wasn't in Times Square. He was in his small bedroom in Queens, staring at his reflection in the mirror. His mother had left for work hours ago. The apartment was silent except for the hum of traffic outside. On his desk sat a laptop, its browser history littered with searches: how to make the world notice you, most famous shootings, Times Square live cam. Darren had been watching the square for weeks. Studying it. Learning where the crowds gathered, where the police patrolled, where the shadows fell at night. Why? That's something detectives would wrestle with for months. Some said it was anger, others said it was loneliness. But one thing became clear: Darren believed that making people afraid was the same thing as making them remember him. By 8:45 p.m., sirens were wailing in every direction. NYPD cruisers swarmed the perimeter, officers in tactical vests fanned out, ordering pedestrians to clear the area. Helicopters circled overhead, their spotlights cutting through the neon glow. Somewhere in the crowd, Darren was moving, weaving between panicked tourists and street vendors, still clutching the weapon. An NYPD scanner crackled with urgency: shooter believed to be male, teenage, armed, moving southbound on 7th Avenue. But the crowd was so dense, so chaotic, that spotting him felt like finding a single drop of ink in a river. And then, Darren stopped running. He turned toward a row of storefronts, glanced behind him once, and disappeared inside. The glass door swung shut behind Darren, muffling the chaos outside. He found himself in a cramped novelty store, walls lined with racks of postcards, NYPD t-shirts, and miniature Statue of Liberty figurines. The store owner, a man in his 50s, looked up from behind the counter, eyes narrowing. "Hey! We're closed," he barked. Darren didn't answer. He moved toward the back, weapon still in hand. The owner froze, instinctively stepping back, hands raised. But Darren didn't fire. Instead, he slipped past a curtain into the stockroom. The man fumbled for his phone, fingers shaking. He dialed 911. Outside, the scene had turned into a full-blown lockdown. Times Square, usually an unstoppable, glowing machine, was shutting down piece by piece. Police tape stretched across intersections, yellow against the bright billboards. Officers with rifles took up positions behind planters and barricades. Commander Torres, leading the operation, barked into his radio. "Contain all exits. He's on foot. We close the net now." By now, every tourist and vendor had been evacuated or told to shelter inside buildings. Times Square, for the first time in years, was eerily empty except for the sound of helicopters, distant sirens, and the pounding of boots on pavement. The stockroom smelled of cardboard and cleaning chemicals. Darren's breathing was uneven now, the adrenaline mixing with something else, uncertainty. For the first time since he fired the first shot, he hesitated. On a shelf, a box cutter sat next to a stack of unopened boxes. He picked it up, not because he needed it, but because holding something else felt like a way to keep control. From somewhere above, a faint thump, the sound of heavy boots on a fire escape. They were getting closer. Across the street, in the upper floor of a coffee shop, 19-year-old college student Emily Larson pressed her face to the window. She'd been doing homework when she saw people scatter below like leaves in the wind. "I didn't even realize it was gunfire at first," she later told reporters. "Then I saw him, the kid with the backpack. He wasn't running like everyone else. He was moving fast, but his head was still, like he knew exactly where he was going. That's when I knew he wasn't trying to get away from the chaos. He was trying to create it." Emily's description would later match Darren's movements on security footage almost exactly. Two NYPD officers reached the novelty shop. One took position at the front entrance while the other slipped into a side alley, searching for a rear exit. Inside, Darren crouched low behind a stack of boxes. The store's back door was locked from the outside. He was trapped. A voice boomed from the front of the shop. "This is the NYPD. Drop your weapon and come out with your hands up." Darren didn't respond. Instead, he reached into his backpack, pulled out his phone, and began recording himself. Police would later say the video was chilling, a quiet monologue about how people would finally remember his name, spoken in a tone so calm it made officers believe he had planned every detail for weeks. Commander Torres knew that time was running out. Every second Darren stayed armed inside a building was another chance for him to take a hostage. Torres gave the order, "Go." The tactical unit burst through the front door in a flash of movement, shields raised, weapons ready. The sound was deafening, boots hitting tile, the crash of the curtain being ripped aside. In the corner, Darren stood with the weapon halfway raised. An officer yelled, "Drop it!" Darren's grip tightened, but in that split second, another officer lunged, tackling him to the ground. The struggle lasted only seconds. The weapon skidded across the floor. Handcuffs clicked shut. It was over. Outside, word spread fast, the shooter's in custody. Paramedics rushed to treat the injured. The man by the red stairs survived but was in critical condition. The woman in the yellow dress would spend weeks in the hospital, her recovery a slow, painful process. For the rest of the night, Times Square stayed shut down, a ghostly version of itself, the billboards still glowing but the streets empty. Tourists peered from hotel windows, their phones recording the sea of flashing red and blue lights below. The next morning, headlines blazed across every screen. Times Square gunman captured alive, 17-year-old suspect faces terror charges. The image that accompanied the story was striking: Darren, in handcuffs, head slightly bowed, flanked by 2 NYPD officers. His face was calm, almost bored, as if none of this mattered. As reporters dug in, Darren's life began to take shape in fragments. He had grown up just an hour from New York City, the only child of parents who divorced when he was 10. Teachers remembered him as quiet, but with flashes of anger that seemed to come out of nowhere. He loved video games, especially ones with military themes, and spent long hours in online chat rooms. But there were signs of something darker. Social media posts revealed cryptic messages about wanting to make a mark and being remembered. Friends, or people who once considered themselves friends, said Darren had started withdrawing months earlier, replacing casual hangouts with long, secretive walks alone at night. The courtroom was packed on Darren's first appearance. He wore a plain gray sweatshirt, chains on his wrists and ankles. The moment he entered, a wave of camera shutters filled the air. The prosecutor read the charges. 2 counts of attempted murder. 4 counts of assault with a deadly weapon. Illegal possession of a firearm by a minor. Reckless endangerment of the public. The judge's voice was firm: given the severity of the alleged acts, bail is denied. One by one, survivors began to tell their stories to the press. The man by the red stairs, now out of surgery, spoke from his hospital bed. His voice was hoarse but steady. "I didn't even see him until it happened. Just a flash, then pain. I'm lucky to be alive." The woman in the yellow dress, still bandaged, was more emotional. "Every time I close my eyes, I'm back there. The lights, the sound, the screaming. I'll never forget his face." Their accounts didn't just inform the public, they fueled outrage. Social media exploded with calls for stricter gun laws and harsher penalties for juvenile offenders and violent crimes. Weeks later, prosecutors released a key piece of evidence: Darren's phone video from inside the novelty shop. In it, he looked directly into the camera, speaking almost in a whisper. "By tomorrow, they'll all know me. You'll know me." There was no yelling, no anger, just a calm certainty that made the clip go viral. Millions watched, some out of shock, others out of morbid curiosity. It became the centerpiece of the trial, the moment that erased any doubt about intent. Months passed, and the trial became a national talking point. When the jury returned, the courtroom was silent. On the charge of attempted murder, we find the defendant guilty. Darren showed no visible reaction. He stared straight ahead, even as his mother wept quietly in the back row. The sentence, 40 years to life, with the possibility of parole after 25. Times Square returned to its chaotic normal, but the echoes of that night remained. For years, tourists would point to the spot near the red stairs and say, "That's where it happened." The victims carried scars, some visible, others not. The city moved on, but never forgot. And somewhere in a cell upstate, Darren began serving his sentence. Whether he ever truly understood the pain he caused, no one could say. The story left behind more than shattered glass and wounded bodies. It left a warning about the quiet ones, the signals we miss, and the thin line between an ordinary night and a nightmare. Times Square would light up again, brighter than ever. But for those who were there, under those neon signs on that particular night, the darkness was something they would carry forever.